a beautiful soul. So I thought, how can I make this the most effective way possible? But what I want to do is to explore how the heroine's journey starts. The fool goes on this mission, and it starts with a magician and ends with the word car. Let me make sure that you can. My screen is huge. So we go through this journey here, the chariot, the first seven, building the ego structure, understanding the self. This is the personal conscious, going deeper into our personal unconscious materia, and then going deeper into the collective materia so that we can have everything that we need to start the journey. So the ego has been able to balance a lot of things here, understand a lot of things, go through a major transformation, gain inspiration, discernment, and then finally goes through the last process here with the collective unconscious and get to the world car, where there is a sense of really this life experience is something that I can manifest the way according to my desires for my reality and so on. So when we look into there you go. When we look into the major arcana, as I said, the first three are gaining knowledge, the first seven. So the first layer here with the magician all the way to the chariot are learning, gaining, shaping the ego, shaping the senses of the I, the ego. This is gaining knowledge. From 8 to 14, we are gaining understanding of our personal unconscious materia that is pending to be integrated. And then from 15 to 21, we're gaining wisdom, really understanding the lower realm and the full moves in all of them. When we go into the minor arcana, which I have a typo here, the minor arcana, no arcana, we have the 56 cards. These are the personal realm. And within the personal realm, the core cards are the relationships, how we see relationships within our life experiences and within the psyche. So why are we doing this? Is because we are looking at the hero's journey, which in Carl Jung's language is individuation. And for our 60 months program is embody alchemy. So we have a divided individual, and we're trying to unite the polarities, the tension that makes us feel like we're no balance within the conscious and the unconscious mind. So the tarot has the inner and the outer mysteries. This is actually, yeah, maybe I need to go over this a little bit more. Let me just make sure that when we go into the inner and the outer mysteries within the tarot, within the major arcana, we are working with these are archetypes. We're working with collective archetypes. Even within the ego structure, we're working with collective archetype. So the personal versus the collective expectations, we can see that when we are in the personal realm, we are looking at our individual desires, our impulses, the path that we want to take, and so on. The collective is the social expectations, the cultural value, our family expectations, archetypal patterns. So if the ego isn't open to the other aspects of the psyche, there will be no individuation. There will be obviously no shadow work, right? because it's not open to it. There is nothing, there is no movement. When we work with the images coming from your dreams, from your exploration exercises, from your experiences, from your ceremonies, that you can see the ego has to be open to what is the tension that is happening within me when I'm being stretched, when I'm being pulling every direction. That means that there is a tension in order for me to transcend my current reality. It's actually something that is being done for me, not against me. So the tension becomes an awareness of the conflict between self and the collective demands, right? Between me and my family expectations, between me and perhaps even my clients, society, friends, our country, and so on. So at the beginning, we may experience, or through this process, we may be working through guilt, through resistance, through really a lot of anxiety, because we are in the middle of the tension. Obviously, there will be things that will show up in this tension: fear of rejection, guilt about disappointing others, difficulty discerning our authentic desires from conditioned programming about what we should want about life, from life. So the tension is creating a conscious relationship without losing ourselves. And in that stretch, there is a lot of energy being released in order for us to come into balance. So there is a lot of power struggle here. So the archetypes, like we talked about in the first weekend together, are really collective unconscious material that are innate within our psyche. They are primal forces, and they're shaping the way we see reality. And that's why we need to sometimes overcome or balance these archetypes so that we can become more conscious, because some of these archetypes may keep us looking at life through a certain filter of consciousness that may no longer be good for what we need. Maybe it was good before, and as we continue to heal, we realize that is no longer serving me. So obviously we talked about the complexes, the great mother, the mother complex, the father complex, the enemy, right? The devil, the dark forces, and so on. The divine child, the wounded healer, basically the divine child, right? Or the innocent child. So as we start with the first card, I want you to know that the structure of the major arcana, the three cycles that we talked about, the first one, knowledge, second one, understanding, and then the third one, wisdom, the Fool moves through all of them. And because the Fool moves through all of them, it really becomes, obviously, it's the number 0. This is the seeker beyond beginning and ending. The archetypal seeker, the Fool, is that energy of crossing the threshold into conscious awareness. So this person seeking change, seeking consciousness and wisdom. We have left the collective order. We are leaving the collective order to seek meaning. So again, we talked about Hermes and Loki and really going against the status quo. So this is perhaps also seeking ancestral wisdom by risking what we know and embodying potential beginning and trusting the process. Obviously, the number 0 is not a fixed position, so it can go in any order. It can come in any order within the tarot and gives us something that we, there is a sense of expect nothing and plan for nothing when this card shows up. So it's free to respond without being bounded by any specific order, like unlike the other cards. So the Fool is not at the beginning, it's not at the end. The Fool is he's beyond the beginning and the end. So he doesn't necessarily start the journey, he is the journey. He appears before the number 1 and the last 21 card. So, and after the 21 card. So both before the pre-birth and post-enlightenment. And this is also representing the cosmic womb. So after we have done and learned everything and integrated all the archetypes, master all the lessons, we return to the nothingness, the not knowing. So this is the beginnings. The beginner's mind, the Zen mind. And this is wisdom that looks identical to ignorance from the outside. We talked about how from the outside, this looks like the fool is really a fool because the person doesn't know what is happening internally with this person and the trust that it requires for the fool to start and go through this journey. The cliff here, you see that he's on a cliff. This is about trusting the boy, trusting what is unseen, the unseen. The fool steps into the empty space and he knows the space isn't empty. He has discovered what mystics and physicists know, that the boy is pregnant with infinite potential. So the teaching here is that the leap into uncertainty is how you will access parallel realities, quantum possibilities. And safety is the actual danger in this place because it keeps you locked in a timeline. So the fool also works with temporal time, so in space. So the dog here, the instinct that are trying to call his attention, can be also a companion, maybe leaping to or trying to tell him, hey, you're about to go off the cliff here. So it's both animal nature and higher self. So this dog can represent both. Some say he's trying to stop the guy, and some may believe he's also jumping. So the dog represents instinct, right? It knows when to retreat for survival and when to leap for evolution. So your animal body and the divine essence are in a war here. They are in conversation. This is very important. The white rose here that represents innocence and purity, but it's not naivety, it's radical presence. The white rose signifies purity. Death, you see the black, what is that? The leaves and stuff, and surrender. So the rose has grown through the entire tarot journey. What the rose signifies: purity, death, and surrender. So the teaching here is that you cannot return to innocence by avoiding experience. You return to it by metallizing, digesting all the experiences until nothing can contaminate your essential nature. That's why we have to go through this card, so that we can face what we need to face, the shadows we need to face, and so on. And this is also divine madness. We talked about how every culture has their own version of the holy fool, the sacred clown, the crazy wise teacher. So this is the collective delusion, right, of what is sanity. The collective is in a true delusion of what is sanity and believes that they're sane. So this is what going through what and pushing against what is normal. What is hallucination from reality? What is madness here, really? From madness versus clarity, seeing through the matrix, right? So when he appears, he's going to be asking, what will you do if you stop pretending to be sane? What truth are you suppressing to fit in? And obviously, there is a little tight situation here because the universe, right? Everything here and nothing. This is the B. There is a contradiction here. Everything and nothing. So the fool travels light. I'm sorry, here. The fool travels light when he goes and starts the journey with the magician. The fool is traveling light with a little backpack and is learning to detach. Is learning or has become a master at detaching from material attachments. So there is a sense of really letting go of possessions, because possessions can be anchors, right? And the teaching here is that it's all about spiritual minimalism. There not poverty, but not becoming attached to the things that we own. Also, a little bit of ego, spiritual ego situation here. So we have to be careful here, right? So the sun, the background here with the sun is consciousness in a natural state. So the bright sun isn't the goal he's reaching for. He's already shining, like he is already shining. So he walks in full daylight, full of awareness. But sometimes to the outside, he appears oblivious, like this guy is really a fool. So there is the teaching here is that there is a need of non-dual awareness, consciousness that doesn't need to be attained because it's already is in the present, right? You can become conscious. You can only stop pretending to be unconscious. That will be sort of like a part of the teaching here. He's immune, like the Fool is the only card that is immune to reversal, right? So upside down or however, it's still the Fool. It doesn't matter. So the Fool, if you, I believe that the Fool is before you were wounded into self-consciousness, when you are in the separation with the higher aspect or source, and you are becoming something to be born in this reality. There is a separation wound there that is, for some of us, is very, very huge. There is shame with the separation, right? So there is a pre-ego consciousness here that comes up, maybe leading to home sickness, like when we feel like I don't belong here and so on, and this card comes up, it may be leading to a prenatal stage or a natal stage before you're born, where you are experiencing shame of the separation and becoming something away from the higher aspect that you are. So there is inferiority challenge here and shame that can come up with this card, with the Fool. So the one that created your ego is also the portal back to the Fool to gain consciousness and go through this heroine's journey. The abyss here is definitely a secret that is almost like an optical illusion, because there's no, the paradox here is there is no ground, but there is a ground. So your identity, your story, your physical reality is temporary, right? It exists in a temporary coherence, right? So the Fool knows this, and that can be horrifying for some of us, right? Enlightenment is enlending, is realizing you were never meant to land. It's very paradoxical, and it can really feel like we can go crazy here, because there is a sense of sometimes grasping for something to understand what is causing us the suffering, but it's beyond what we can comprehend. So sometimes we have to surrender and just trust the process with the Fool. Let's see. And sometimes the people can become they overcome the physical ego and then they turn into spiritual ego. So there is a trick here. If you're not careful, you can turn your regular ego into a spiritual ego, where now your sense of identity is like, like I'm the best thing and I'm divine. And yes, we are, but if you become over-identified with that, with your meditations and crystals and the gurus and so much shadow work and this and that, and I'm light and I'm a starseed, and you become over identified with the identity, the spiritual ego could have taken over and is teaching you to really you have to let go of that, but also we have to come to the point where we can see the spiritual egos to also integrate what's coming up. Is that how if we were dealing with inferiority, perhaps now my spiritual ego is giving me a sense of superiority. So I have to become aware. Essentially, this is the cosmic womb, right? So one of the mysteries of the Fool is that we are playing again. You are the same consciousness, the Shiva consciousness, playing and forgetting who you are so that you can experience the delight of remembering.